Ready? Cool. So welcome to the Aftercamp Meetup. My name is Scott, and with me is Rachel. And we're recording this. We like to post these on YouTube, so I will definitely send the YouTube link out if you watch the pre-recording. And then, of course, YouTube's got our old meetups as well, too. This is the second session for the live developer portfolio review sessions. You can check out the first one, which was last month. We're probably going to hold off a little bit on these for at least a couple months. Summer's here and people are doing their thing. So we have the planned meetups for AWS next in a couple weeks. So we're pretty excited about that. And then after that, it's ERDs, Open API, and system architecture graphs. And so some documentation on the projects that you're building, but really from that kind of that associate level developer. So we're introducing the topics. So Aftercamp as a whole, our focus is to really just help kind of that space post-graduation from a boot camp or a CS program or self-taught for that matter, and just get some of that critical advice. And so just a quick primer on me for those folks who are new. My name is Scott. I'm the Director of Engineering and Growth for a group called Artisan Technology Group. We're an agency based out here in Kansas City. I got a team of about 30 engineers and architects and cloud engineers, and have about a 15-year history in development. So yeah, I think it just kind of just a heads up. We like to just do these to just help people out. So feel free to follow us on Meetup, YouTube, all that stuff. With that, we'll just go ahead and hop in. So this session is about looking at people's materials. So resumes, GitHubs, LinkedIn profiles, and just like kind of just showing you what I see. And for some perspective, I look at probably anywhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 resumes and portfolios every month through the job that I have now. But I've also personally done about a couple hundred interviews outside of the current job, and then certainly have been in the bootcamp industry for about 5 or 6 years as well too. So I've written 3 curriculums across the United States, started programs, all that jazz. So with that, we're going to go ahead. We had 2 brave volunteers today. So we have Travis, who is actually one of my students. Gosh, dude, it's been like, what, over a year, right? Something like that.
Yeah, we graduated February 28th of 2020.
Yeah, you graduated right in the fray, you crazy man, and was placed shortly thereafter. So yeah, you've been at it for about a year. So Travis volunteered to, he's not job seeking, he's gainfully employed, but he's like, hey man, look at my stuff anyways. And then we have Brandon, who actually is studying up in Minneapolis. Minneapolis, right? That's where you're at? Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
With Prime Academy. So you're in progress right now. And so it's actually got some really cool contrast between somebody who has graduated from a bootcamp program and somebody who's in it right now. So I don't know. We'll figure out who's going to go first here as soon as I share my screen and figure out who's up first. So let's go ahead and share my screen. And welcome to the people who are brand new. Oh, hey, also, if you are brand new, make sure you join our Slack group. We share stuff here and there, and it is starting to pick up a little bit. And Rachel, I'm sure, will share the Slack. She already did, so she's sitting right next to me. Rachel and I are married, if you couldn't tell by the wacky last name. Okay, looks like Travis is up first. So Travis, just some quick context on Travis. Travis graduated, as we said, February 2020. Graduated in the pandemic, or just as the pandemic has started. And so has been doing a gig for about a year. And hit me up and said, hey, man, let's do it. And I said, okay, that's cool. So just one of the things I want to lay out here is that like any feedback I give is just a critical eye feedback. It's really just about like helping people get to where they want to go. And so I'm not doing it to be spiteful or mean. If I give pointed feedback, I'm not trying to like put anyone down. I don't think I'm a mean guy, but I just want to throw that out there. So thank you to the volunteers, because I think that'll help everybody kind of see what they should be doing. Excuse me. So Travis, let's take a peek. And this is a conversation too. So if you guys want to like chime in, I do think it works a little bit better if you just go ahead and go hot mic and talk. I don't have the chat pulled up with me. Otherwise, Rachel can tell me if you do type in a chat message. Okay. So we have Travis's resume. So I'm 2 pages here. And out of the gate, the first thing that my eyes gravitate to is just this section right up top. Obviously, that we, our eyes naturally gravitate to the bigger text and then kind of work our way down to the smaller text. Now, because I hire primarily based on technologies, one of the first places I'm going to see, and one of the things I kind of expect to see when I open up a resume, is tech skills in the upper half of the first page, which he does have, but it's weird. There's this kind of this vertical list, and there's a ton of white space. Now, one of the things you're going to hear us talk about is strategic use of white space. You don't want to be too busy, but you don't want to be too empty either. And so one of the things I'd love to see is just actually taking this list and kind of like maybe 3-columning it. The other thing too is that it's really easy to fall into the trap of kind of doing the like NASCAR logo soup on your resume. And this is a really kind of difficult thing for hiring managers to kind of suss out, is like figuring out like, okay, you got Ruby on Rails, you got PHP Laravel, you got JavaScript, jQuery, Vue, React, Redux Saga, TypeScript, Node, Express, RSpec, Jest, Git, Postman, and Docker. So the question I have to ask myself as a hiring manager is, which is your primary? Like, what are you the best at? And the problem is that like, it's not, you got to think about it from my perspective, right? I'm going to show you, I have Brandon's resume up. I want to show you about how long I have to look at a resume. That's about it. So I showed Brandon's resume for probably about anywhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 seconds. It is not out of disrespect, y'all. I will tell you that right now. I am, the trick with hiring is that resumes come in inconsistently. So it's not like I can always schedule time to look at resumes. And so I have to kind of fit it into the pockets of my day, because the other thing I'm competing against is, you have lots of opportunities, developers have lots of opportunities right now. And so I know that you want feedback as quick as possible. So in order to honor that, I want to make sure that I am getting back to you as quickly as possible. I personally hate the whole HR limbo hell thing that job applicants go through. I don't like that. I really short, concise HR cycles. So in that 5 to 10 seconds of the initial scan, we're basically looking for a funnel approach. We want to go ahead and like draw the reader in. And the way that's going to work is that basically you're showing quickly that you have thought about the job posting and you're putting kind of that information forward first. So the question kind of goes back to, what is it that you're showing on the resume to help that person kind of like figure out whether or not we want to keep reading or say thanks but no thanks. So I suspect we didn't teach Ruby on Rails or PHP Laravel at Prime when Travis attended. So I'm suspecting that he's applying or would be thinking about applying for a Ruby on Rails PHP job. I don't know if that's the case, but because they're listed up top, I'm going to make the assumption that you looked at the job posting and you said, here you go. And if that's not the message you're conveying, then it might not be the right message. Meaning like if you are, let's say, a Node developer, and you're applying for a Java position, Java Spring, let's say, I'm assuming that you're going to post the thing that I'm looking for right away. Now, the trick to that is you're kind of contrasting that against like, is that your primary skill? And so as a hiring manager, I have to kind of figure that out pretty quickly, because I have about 15 resumes to fit in between bites at lunch. And so I'm trying to quickly figure this out. So this is one of those things that I do think in a lot of cases, less can be more. Like I know we're super tempted to put the logo soup up there, but I think that you could, do say primary technical skills and list the big hits first, right? So if like in Travis's case, if he was applying for a Ruby on Rails job, I expect to see that up front. And then probably all the associated technologies with Ruby on Rails. Actually, Ruby is one of the few primary languages I've never touched. So actually PHP and Ruby. That's not true. I've touched PHP. I don't like PHP, so I haven't touched it. I try not to touch it. But let's say that there was a Java job that I was applying for. I would put Java first, right? Like I've written Java Spring professionally, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that up front. Now the question becomes, does Node have any value? And that question would be answered basically based off the job posting. But I'd probably list it, somewhere else, right? So like, here are my primary tech skills. And I think that there's an opportunity, and you're gonna hear me talk about this, where we're gonna try to marry this tech skills with what's going on down here. So in this quick scan, it's an interesting thing because I both love what you're doing for my brain, but also kind of hate from what you're doing from an organization standpoint, meaning like I'm getting the vertical list, which is giving me kind of order of importance, but I'm not getting, I have this like huge amount of white space, which is weird for my brain. So I think like a short form kind of like 3-tier list would be pretty good. Now that's from, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, quick question. Do you think because, be modifying that list every time you apply to 300 jobs, can be, very intense, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that you would gain the same effect if you just highlight, those primary skills that they are looking for, even if it's not like on the top of the list, like you just highlight like the 3 or 4 that they are looking for? Do you think it will create that visual effect of like, directing your eyes towards those skills?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's multi-layered too. Okay, so here's the deal. First and foremost, I want to tell you something really, 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 really important. It sounds like you're not doing this, so I'm not super worried about you. There is something that you brought up that I don't want you to do, but like, let's start off with the first thing, is that you do need to modify your resume for every single job you apply. And the reason why you need to do that, there's like the most important piece of feedback I ever got in my life, and it sucks, but it's true. Here you go. This is big professional advice right here. If you don't do it, somebody else will, and you will lose that person every single time. So what I'm getting at is that, if there's this question I always get of like, do I need to modify my resume for every job that I apply for? Yes, because the people who you're applying against are doing just that. Now, I do think that the approach you can take is write a master resume and whittle it down. It's so much easier to delete things than it is to add things. And then we get into this weird question about pages and all that jazz. And I can get into that a little bit later. So that's the first thing. But I don't think you do the complete kitchen sink of a resume with every single thing, everything you apply for. You got to keep it consolidated. You got to keep it concise. And you need to basically, the question you're answering out of the gate is, what value can you provide the job that you're applying for? And the thing is here, I love this illustration. Rachel came up with this and I just freaking love it. So here's another big piece of advice from Rachel. I'm stealing right now. Is that the way that we have a tendency to think about it is, look, we're going to take a very, very simple analogy. I want somebody who can draw pictures of bears. Like, they need to be able to draw pictures of bears. That's the job I'm hiring for. Can you draw a bear? It just so happens, this is really random, but I have a random bear coffee cup too to help to illustrate this. Can you draw me a bear? And if you hand somebody a resume that is for this bear drawing job, that is connect the dots style, where the person looking at the resume needs to fill in the outline and be like, holy crap, that's a bear, you've lost. So the point is that as job seekers, we like to think that, oh, well, they'll derive and understand what my resume says, and they'll be able to understand and connect the dots to the value that I want to bring to the team. I am sorry to tell you this, but as I'm sneaking in bites of food and resumes, as I'm eating lunch, looking at your resume, I'm not thinking about that hard. You have to make it easy. And look, here at the end of the day, if I get drawn in, I'll read the rest. And this is why I talk about this upper half being so important, is because I'm going to scan this first. And in that kind of initial scan, I'm going to make the decision to read the rest. So you want to be really, really careful in this upper half that you're like really quickly explaining and articulating, I can do the job. That's the story you need to tell in that upper half, as I can do the job. And the other thing, so like, kind of the connected dots metaphor, the whole, if you don't, that someone else metaphor. There's another thing that I want to bring up really quick. And that is this idea of an ATS system. First off, if you're not following Amy Miller on LinkedIn, you have to follow Amy Miller on LinkedIn. She's a senior recruiter for Amazon, senior tech recruiter for Amazon. And she talks about the ATS systems extensively. What an ATS system is, it's an automatic tracking system. That's the acronym. And there are a lot of false teachings going on around there, mostly from career coaches, about trying to beat the ATS, like this mythical robot creature that you need to fight to get a conversation. That simply does not exist. And Amy spells this out extensively. She has significant experience with ATSs. She has many conversations with people who work with ATSs. There is not a robot who is rejecting you. And this is really hard to hear. It is not a robot rejecting your resume. It is a human. ATSs just simply do not reject people. People reject people. So what an ATS does, and I use an ATS, I use Paycor. That's the one that we use. So honestly, it's one of the more common ones, but Paycor doesn't really tell me, it doesn't, people talk about these keyword searches and all these other things. Like it's all crap. Like that's not real. Honestly, I go into the ATS system because it's hooked into where you applied, the website you applied, feeds you into an ATS system. I can see who's in progress for each role. I click on your name, and the first thing I look at is this resume, and that's all I do. I click on all the people who applied, and I look at their resumes first thing. Now, keep in mind too, I'm the second step. So the thing is that at this point, a technical recruiter has probably looked at this, and they're kind of doing the same thing. Like they're quickly scanning and seeing, okay, well, we're hiring for an iOS developer. Do they have iOS skills listed in their technical skills? That's why this story is so important, is that you have to understand what role you're applying for. And the other key, of course, too, like don't lie. Like if you can't, if you're applying for a Java role and you've never touched Java, it's probably not the right role for you. But like Travis here, like I would totally expect Travis to apply for any job that has Ruby on Rails, PHP, JavaScript, React, any of these things. But I would expect this list to be more consolidated based on the job that he's applying for. Or at the very least, we put something like primary technical skills and we focus on the ones that for the role that you're applying for. Now, if you want to weave in other technologies, this down here in the explanations of the role is a great place to do this. So this is perfect. And so I'm going to show you this correlation right here. And this is something Travis did. AWS is listed right here in a bullet point, but it's not listed here in the technical skills, right? The reality of the situation is that anyone who's touched programming has, this list could be super significant. We didn't include Visual Studio Code. We didn't include PHP Storm. We didn't include any of the tooling that is used to build out the applications. And so like, clearly we don't put the kitchen sink or the full list in here. We only target and focus the things that are going to be really important to the job. So like this list should match and maybe just a small stretch of like the things that they're looking for. And when I say small stretch, here's an example of that. If I'm hiring an iOS developer, I'm going to want to see iOS, Swift, and Objective-C. Those are the languages used to program for iOS. Good expansion technologies would actually be something like a cross-platform technology like React Native, God forbid Ionic, or Xamarin, or something that is cross-platform, but it's still kind of in that iOS ecosystem. And maybe, just maybe, we also include Android because this is like a mobile position. Those are good stretch ones. Like, would somebody put that forward to me right now? I would be stoked. Now, I do think, and there's a lot of different ways to handle this. You can say primary technical skill list that is a direct answer to the job posting. But maybe we have like, I don't know how Rachel feels about this, like secondary technologies or hobby technologies or other technical skills, something that kind of separates and says, here's what you were looking for. And here is some other stuff as well to separate it and make it easy to find right away. Because honestly, like if, let's say Travis, I'm not saying Travis is doing this. If Travis is applying for an iOS position, I have to scan all of this and I probably won't because I'm thinking that the next resume might actually have iOS listed up top. So Fernando, does that scratch the itch of your question?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Cool, man. There's one in the chat. Hang on a second. Let me go find it quick. 1 second.
I also just super quick wanted to, Carmina had mentioned using the exact words the way they're in the job description. And one, I think it's super important because the ATS, as it parses it, that's going to be helpful. But the other reason when you call that out, it's so incredibly important is your recruiters are going to match what you have up on your resume to the job posting. So you may understand that Node is Node.js, but they may not always know the difference. So you want to make sure, to that point, exactly what was said, you are aligning those words up to what's on the job posting. It just, again, it makes it so much easier to get through that first point of contact that you're going to have. So that's an excellent call out.
I also want to hit Cedric's question. He had asked, does this apply to referrals? Friends, I would love to tell you the world is like completely stacked and fair. It's not. I mean, honestly, if somebody makes a referral, I will probably look at that resume a lot longer than if it wasn't a referral, if it was just like a blind outreach. Rachel and I talk about often there's 4 things you have to do post-graduation or when you're in job seeking mode. And the 4 things are, you got to learn things, you got to build things, you have to apply for jobs. And I know it sounds crazy, but there are people who are job seeking, like, how many jobs have you applied for? They're like, 1. I'm like, why'd you only apply for 1? Well, they rejected me. I'm like, well, why aren't you applying more? Because I got rejected. I'm like, well, friend, you're not going to like get a job if you don't apply for jobs. Like, you have to apply for jobs. The 4th thing, which has been hard, honestly, it's been super hard with COVID, is you got to network. And the reality of the situation is that it is super, it's easy to, like, as a hiring manager, to be like, oh, well, like this person vouches for this other person, so I should probably talk to them. Now, it's extremely problematic. I have all sorts of just like problems with this idea that like from like a D&I standpoint of like there's some massive systemic problems with that. And so like good companies will make outreach. They will try to connect with groups that they are not currently connected to. Like good companies get out in the community and meet people and create those custom connections. But like as a job seeker, if you can do the same, especially if you can find those companies that are reaching out, like people are looking for you. People are looking to expedite you through the process. But if you're not getting out there, it's hard for others to find you. So like you have to get out. And Rachel and I have like a whole big crazy free course that we're working on the 4 things you need to do. And we'll cover that extensively. But like the more you network, the better. The more you can get out there and talk to other devs at meetups. And just, you know, you can go out to like job fairs or whatever you can do, just go out and meet people. And the more that you can do, the more you can advocate. Heck, if you get on LinkedIn, like I've like hired people who I've only talked to on LinkedIn, and like, that's awesome too. Networking on LinkedIn is a really good idea. But just get out there and make yourself known. And like, look, I am an introvert, believe it or not. And you're like, what do you mean you're on camera? I'm like, actually, in my 15 years of teaching, I have found that one of the best places for an introvert to be is in front of people teaching, because they get to control the conversation. I would rather be at home playing computer games, programming or whatever, reading a book, whatever, than get out and meet people. But I absolutely understand the value of it. It took me so long to figure it out. So network. So Cedric, I know, man, like I hopefully that answers your question, but yeah, I will give more than a 5 or 10 second look. Now, the other thing too, I'll say is that, look, like recruiters might actually spend significantly more time looking at, I'm just saying from like the hiring manager standpoint, recruiters might pass up 30 resumes to me and say, hey, can you look through these 30 when you get time? I know our recruiters are freaking amazing, and they spend a significant amount of time sourcing people and looking through resumes and really combing through all the details. So just, it depends on what the role is. And so not everyone's 5 or 10 seconds, but some groups can be 5 or 10 seconds. So let's go back to this and talk about the kind of specifically Travis's resume and kind of get back into some details here. So once again, I'm talking about this funnel effect, right? Like that kind of the opening 25% of the resume, and I'm saying like a 2-page resume, the opening like half of the first page should draw me in. So I'm going to pretend that Travis is applying for a Ruby on Rails position. So my eyes go here first, no matter what. Technical skills will always, my eyes will just go there. Next up is going to be the summary. I might go up here and say passionate software developer with a desire to constantly push the limits of knowledge, explore creative solutions to new and old problems, and remain in a perpetual state of learning for my team and business partners. Super exciting. Business wise, I want just like a splash of personal, just something like what kind of tech do you like? You know, it's like software developer is kind of like the high level generic. Like what about software engineering do you get excited about? Like passionate backend developer, passionate API developer and designer, you know, something like that. Just give me just a little splash of personal would really, really help me out. I like learning. I will tell you that I've gotten in the habit when people list this like a lifelong learner or someone who likes to learn, I'm gonna call you on it in the interview. So make sure you have lots of good narrative around learning. I'm gonna make you prove it. Okay, so experience, Skrillabout Labs, LLC, dates right there. I like the simple, I like just simple layouts. Once again, I'm scanning quickly. So boom, boom, where'd you work? When did you work there? And what'd you do? So full stack software developer, awesome. Follow best practices, I see Scrum in there. You could say Agile Scrum. Agile is like a good word, would be probably the way I'd list that. Test-driven development, cool. Refactoring, continuous integration, coding standards, all good stuff. Working knowledge of responsive and mobile design's good. Familiar with the Agile process, or is that Agile and project management tools? Contribute to all aspects of the development lifecycle, good. Strong written and verbal, good. Front end and back end, cool. So interesting thing you did here. In the second bullet point, you listed knowledge of responsive and mobile web design. It's the only like technical thing you really gave me outside of like these two last lines here. And I feel like I want just like a little bit more, because right now, here's what I'm thinking, is that if I'm looking at this, I'm saying you probably work primarily front end. And the reason I think that is because you've listed responsive and mobile design as like kind of the core thing. It seems like the core thing you did there. So here you're listed as a full stack developer. You're applying for a Ruby on Rails job, which is back end, but you're only giving me a front end bullet point, which is probably a cause for pause. So I would definitely take a minute to kind of just add a bullet point that talks about back-endy stuff, just something like, hey, designed and implemented APIs, or just like something that you specialize in the back end. Now, like I said, it's dependent on what you're applying for, but once again, if I'm going with your lead bullet point suggests back end, your title suggests full stack, which is fine. Those two match fine, but then your bullet points only support front end. And I get that these are the front end, back end, but you chose to be descriptive of this one, but you didn't describe other stuff. Okay. Full stack software development student. So here's the deal. And this is great. So one of the things that I've come to like quite a bit is set some context for the program you attended. So if you like Prime, for example, is a 20-week full-time immersive bootcamp program. And you know, you can list on-site or remote. I think that could play into a strength if you're applying for a remote job and you studied remote. I think that can be advantageous, or you can just list on-site, and I think that carries some weight too. So just be strategic how you use that, but be descriptive of the program. That does matter. And it can matter either way, right? If you attend a part-time nights and weekend program while working full-time, like that's crazy too. Like, you know, I don't want to talk about that. Like, oh my gosh, so you worked 80 hours a week. Like, are you okay? I like the projects here, outdoor planner, and then determination incorporated community tracker. I forgot about that project. Those are good. Honestly, second page, I'm just kind of scanning for tech and implementation stuff. So I'm probably looking for things that I care about for mine. That's the other thing too, y'all, is like, you got to understand that like there's the job posting and then there's the job I'm going to actually have you do. And like, I think that is a big misunderstanding. I think sometimes from job seekers, and certainly one that I had, is that, gosh, why am I rejected? Like I hit all their bullet points. I listed everything. Why aren't you talking to me? There could be unseen bullet points. And what I mean by that is, and I'm guilty of it right now for sure. On our website, we have posted a mobile position. We just hired an iOS developer, but the mobile position I need right now is probably going to be an Android developer, somebody who has like, 5-6 years of Android, because I don't have that team built out and I need somebody who really understands Android. So like you could apply for a mobile developer, be like, oh man, I checked so many mobile boxes, but I haven't updated the job posting to reflect just Android. So you might get a reject. Now we try really hard to be like, give feedback. I know our recruiters are super good about that. Like, hey, the reason why we rejected you is because, we have listed mobile, but we're really focused on Android right now. You look like an amazing iOS developer. So, that's the direction we're heading, that kind of thing. My point is that don't assume that when your resume gets rejected, that it has to do with, like, I think we feel like it's a personal attack, right? We feel we feel a lot of shame. We feel a lot of guilt. We feel all these things. Like, seriously, chin up. Don't take it personal. I know it's like you need a job, and like what's more personal than money, right? What's more personal than your living situation? But at the end of the day, like, there might be needs that are unlisted on the posting. So, and this is pre-conversation. Maybe I've looked at maybe we've called you, maybe we haven't, but just be aware of that. The other thing I should probably mention too is I am trying to talk in generalities. Rachel and I have spent a significant amount of time talking to hiring managers and getting a better idea of how like globally things are done. And certainly like in the case of where I work and some other edge cases as well too, they might do things a little bit different. So I'm trying to point out like, hey, we do it this way, but this other thing might be happening. So yeah, I like the technologies listed. I like that you explain everything right here. I think it's odd that you get into such detail here, but don't get into detail here. So I'd like to see probably just, like I said, I'm gonna go back to, I think I'm just looking for something more out of the past, 6 months to a year of your life. I just would want to see like, hey, give me some clue of like what you've been doing. And obviously to the extent that you're able to.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Do you prefer to have the question asked at the end, or can I ask?
No, man, interjected. You got it.
Okay, so can you scroll to the first page? So in this case, like this person he has a job already, right? So can you give us ideas of what to do when you haven't landed on your first job? What would you put there?
Actually, I'm going to wrap up Travis here pretty quick and talk about Brandon, because Brandon's actually in study right now. So I'm going to talk about things he needs to do to get that first job. So we will definitely weave that in. And I'll make sure to head over that because I just realized we're at 6:33. So I will get off Travis's here in just a moment. Travis, at this point, man, I think you could probably dump the drywall if you wanted to. That's up to you. I think it's interesting. You'll hear me talk a little bit more about personal or non-development jobs here with Brandon here, I'm guessing. But that's kind of an option. After you get your first gig and you've been working as a developer, just focus on developer. I think there's this thing that a lot of like graduates from boot camps do, is that they tend to overemphasize some of their past history to like act as validation. But it's kind of that connect the dots scenario where it's like, I'm just going to make up something. Like if you were into cooking, if you were a chef before becoming a developer, I don't need to see like half a page of bullet points of being a chef. I just don't I think it's cool. I think I want to see it, but I don't need you to go through every bullet point in detail in that. I'm going to take a quick peek through his LinkedIn quick, and then we're going to look at his GitHub super fast. So I'm going to scan this because I'm basically going to go as fast as I would. I like pictures. Pictures are important. There's tons of research and study around this. So picture. It can be professional. There's plenty of tutorials online on how to take a professional picture with your phone, selfie style. Bullet points here would be great, especially because you have detail here. So just once again, some clues as to what you've been doing would be awesome. I'm going to look at your top listed skills. So if you're applying for that Ruby on Rails job, I've probably already cut you out at this point, because I would have hopefully seeing that. And this is the game that you got to play, right? Because if you're applying for multiple jobs, the goal is the focus, right? Like you're going to hear me say that. If you got to pick something, you got to put your foot in your line in the sand. You're like, but I graduated full stack, I'm going to take anything. It's like, well, you're going to have to kind of focus in on something and really start to position yourself as a React developer, a backend developer, or something. You got to kind of like put your foot down on the ground and say, I'm going to do this. So Travis, if you were applying, once again, I'm just using you as an example here. If you're applying for a Ruby on Rails job, I'd want to see Ruby up top. Endorsements do not matter. They do, but they don't, right? Like it's cool that they're there. They don't, if you're applying for a job, like if you've been doing Ruby on Rails like Gorilla Bot Labs, I'm guessing you know Ruby on Rails a lot better than JavaScript at this point. So focus in on the things that you are targeting, and the endorsements will come. Endorsements are kind of a dead concept in LinkedIn anyways. All right, let's go to your GitHub. By the way, side note, formatting matters. This line break is weird to me. Okay, GitHub. So I get this question a lot. Like, does the lawn matter? Like, right? Does the greenness matter? If you look at mine, I get really big on this. Like I have a big green thing, big green mess. Doesn't matter, kinda. It matters if like you have nothing on the GitHub. Like it's super weird, right? Like you give me your GitHub profile, I get there and there's nothing, and that's weird. I'd almost rather you didn't include it because I get this all the time where like a seasoned developer who's applying for a job gives me their GitHub, and there's literally nothing on it. Like literally nothing, guys. I'm not even being dramatic, like literally zero. I'm like, why did you give me your GitHub? I don't get it. So this is good. And the things I would do here is a couple of things. So there's an option in your repositories to pin repositories. If you choose not to pin repositories, it's going to go to popular repositories. So GitHub's going to figure out what to put as your 6. Please, please, please pin your repositories that you want people to see. Like this is super important. So there's an option in here. If I go at my customize your pins, you can pick the repositories that you want people to see. So I've chosen 4. You can choose 2, you can choose 6, whatever. But pick something. And the reason why that is because you want to control the narrative of what you want people to see. It is super important or considered good practice to show one of 2 things. Either that you've done projects in the language that you're applying for, or that you have significant projects. One of the two matters. So in this case, like those projects that you listed for Prime, I would expect to see those as your top 2 here. And if you've done any personal projects in Ruby, or I think PHP Laravel was the other one, I would expect to see those here as well too. So don't leave things to chance. Don't do popular repositories, pin repositories, and show people what it is that you want them to see. The next thing that'll be important too is README files. And I took a preview at Brandon's. So we're gonna look at Brandon's, and I know Brandon did a really good job on this. So I'm gonna go ahead and show that over on Brandon's side. But yeah, pictures important here. I do think there should be continuity in your pictures and profiling online. Personal opinion. So your picture on LinkedIn should be the same picture on GitHub. Should be on the same picture as Twitter. You're like, Twitter, that's personal. Like, guess what? If you have a Twitter account, it's professional. Sorry. If you list it anywhere on your resume, if it is an artifact anywhere on the internet that is connected to your LinkedIn profile or your resume, it is considered professional. So if you don't want professional people to look at it, take it off. Yes, I will look at your Twitter if you list it. By the way, probably PS, it's probably safe not to post it because I've definitely looked at candidates. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know that I can hire this person based off some of the things I'm seeing on Twitter. I'd be nervous too. So just don't list Twitter, personal opinion. Don't list Facebook either. Facebook's super personal at this point. Like keep Facebook to your like kids and family and whatnot. Okay, heading over to Brandon. Okay, so just gonna go through a little bit faster. Kind of once again, I'm not actually looking at the screen yet because I just want to make sure that I give you a raw take. So I'm gonna talk through my thought process as I'm looking through this. So here I go. So immediately out of the gate, I am not a huge fan of columns. Please, I don't know many people who are. So the 2-column approach to me does not work good, at least in terms of concentrations, right? So you have experience column here and technical column. And the difference is, or what I'm going to talk about, oops, I didn't realize I had edit access, Brandon, my apologies. Travis is doing something different. Before I recommended that you could do 3 columns in the tech skills because it's a logical group together. Here, I think like having experience in one column and technical skills in another kind of creates this like, where am I looking kind of anomaly. And I've seen people go really crazy on this and they have like 3 columns and each column is something different. And it's like, I don't know where to look. So immediately my eyes are going to go to technical skills. Brandon's in study right now. So I would assume that when he starts applying, he's going to be focusing on JavaScript and React jobs. Tuck HTML and CSS at the bottom. It's assumed if you list JavaScript and React. It is a lower priority technology and it's kind of table stakes at this point. So the things I want to see out of the gate if you're applying for a React job is, let's look at JavaScript. I want to see React and I love seeing Redux. I think it's smart that you put jQuery. jQuery is not dead, friends, because there are legacy projects that are being updated. So jQuery is still a good thing to list. Node, Axios, Passport, all good stuff. Postgres, good stuff. Postgres is going to be PostgreSQL. Because I have edit access, I'm just going to do it quick. So just like that. Just heads up on the business. Most engineering managers even don't agree on how to say this. I say Postgres. I definitely hear hiring managers who've been in the game 20 years say PostgreSQL. Like it is a thing. So. But when you list the technology, make sure you list it as Postgres, capital S at the end, capital Q, capital L. Ajax, actually Ajax, I wouldn't list separate, especially because you have Axios listed. Ajax isn't a technology, it is a concept. So Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. There are AJAX requests that exist in jQuery, but AJAX does not belong to jQuery. The problem that it solves is the communication between the client and the server. And I'm assuming that you got a handle on that because you listed Axios. I actually would not list AJAX. Materialize, great. Bootstrap, Sweet Alert, love to see those. I would just take this entire column and tuck it into just above experience. Education and certificates, I would list at the end here, but let's focus in on this side here. A people person who loves collaborative effort to solve tough problems. I love that. Software development has taught me. Oh, okay. Real quick thing. A people person. So you're kind of referring to kind of third person-y, and then you're in the second person here. So I'm a people person. It has taught me. That's weird. People get caught up on that. Just a heads up. It's like, what voice are you talking in? That's unusually collaborative labor and ideation, along with a dedication to continued personal growth and improvement that led to overcome the biggest obstacles. So question mark on that one. I don't not like it, but it might be, it's kind of like a, what do you mean? And I'm afraid to ask you now too. Like, I don't actually want you to answer them. Like, what biggest obstacles have you overcome, Brandon? I'd probably just lighten that up just a hair, but overall, just getting it into the second person or first person would be great. All right, achieve daily project-based learning goals. Okay. So I'm gonna get back to Fernando's question here. What should I list if I am in study in a program? The things that you should list would be any massive projects that you do in study, and limit that to 1 or 2. You don't need to list every project you completed. And I will tell you that you just at least one more personal project that you've done really helps. Especially in like cities that have like concentrations of boot camps or CS programs. I see this in CS all the time, is that everybody's resume and experience looks identical. So I'm trying to figure out what's different about you. And they'd be tempted to list it here. You'd be tempted to think I'm going to connect the dots, but remember, I'm not going to draw the bear for you. You got to draw the bear for me. So getting at least one other kind of personal project that has some sort of like something special to it. It doesn't need to be a big project. Don't confuse big with like special. It can be like a short form 1 or 2 week project. And here's the key buzzwords, y'all, is APIs. Anytime you build a project that has an API, it does you a solid. I talked a little bit about this in the last meetup about how system architecture, if you did miss it, you can go back and watch the recording. I talked about system architecture and software architecture, kind of from that perspective of being new. And we started to connect like the client to like the third-party API to the server. That is one of the hardest concepts for new developers to really grasp. So if you can build personal projects where you can go back and point to like, oh, this system's talking to this system is talking to this system. What I mean by that is, oh, my front end is getting an image from AWS, and that's going to go upload that to the database over on the server. Like, you understand like how that all works. And so anytime you can incorporate like third-party APIs, cloud technologies like AWS, that's actually the next session we're going to talk about, is here's all the AWS tech that'd be really good for you to play with. And the reason I bring that up is because it solves exactly this problem. What additional are you doing to kind of keep pushing for, like, well, how are you experimenting? So I'm going to go back to the person that I talked about just hired. They are an iOS developer. And one of the reasons I really wanted to hire that person was a story they told me about how they were at a hackathon and they built this. They're like, he's like, I've never done computer vision before, and I wanted to try it. And I built this like little computer vision app. CV is the thing. And they were explaining what they built, and like they only worked on like a day or two. It wasn't like this big project, but like it just showed that they cared, right? And I think that's like a really big thing that you need to communicate, especially coming out of a boot camp. Is there's this question I ask people when they're not getting traction in their job search. It's a really hard question to answer. authentically. Like, if you are struggling to get projects done, and remember the 4 things you need to do: learn things, build things, apply for things, and network. If you're struggling with the learn and build, there's an important question that's really hard to answer. I need you to ask yourself. You need to go in the bathroom, shut the door, lock the door, look in the mirror in your eyeballs, and ask the question, do I like programming? Because if the answer is yes, it is super obvious and easy to see on your resume, because it's communicating the things that you've tried and the things you've experimented in. People who like things don't mind failing at them. Like, there are like tons of things I've tried in my life that like, I'm like, oh man, I just like this so much. I'm so bad at it, but I just like it. And I'm gonna keep doing it. And it doesn't matter what failures versus things I don't like. You know, if I fail at it, I'm not as like keen to like keep on. I don't really want to do that. And there's this funny story. Jackson just got a skateboard, and I bought one too. And I used to skateboard a lot back in the day. And so I get home with the skateboard, and probably been a solid 15, 20 years. And I just whiff it. Like, I whiff it in front of like nobody, like nobody's there. I just like totally bite it. I was going downhill. I had the wrong weight distribution, and I just fell on my butt, skinned up my whole leg, came back in, didn't tell anybody. Rachel looks at me the next day and she goes, "Why is your leg completely shredded?" And I was like, "Because I tried skateboarding and then drunk." She's like, "You what?" "I don't care. I'll get back on because I like it." So if you like programming, it's easy to spot. You make time for the things that you like. If you don't like programming, you got to figure out, like, do you not like programming because you're having a hard time? Or do you not like programming because you just don't like programming? And I think it's really, really tricky to know the difference between the two. What I mean by that, like, if you don't like programming because you're bad at it, but like you still like it when you do like it, like, that's something you can work through, right? Like, I will tell you right now, like, I've been programming for about 15 years, and like, I don't get it right all the time. Like, I definitely like will fail quite a bit. And there's this thing I tell people that's really important to hear if you haven't heard it yet, is that the programming discipline, the job of programming, is 90% failure and 10% success. When you know what to write, it goes really quick. Like, it's like, that's the 10%. You're euphoric and you're happy. The part that takes forever to do is the failure part, like figuring out what to, like, how to, you know, you build system A, it doesn't work, then it works. And you're like, great, it works, it lights up green, you get the dopamine hit, you're super excited. And then you go to build system B, and you're building, it doesn't work, and then it works. That's exciting. And then you combine the two systems, and those break, and those don't work. You like fix it, and those work together. And then you got to add system C. If we knew what to write, coding would not take that long. And I don't know, I've been doing this a long time. I've programmed alongside people who work at Google, and I helped, you know, Verizon build a security platform, and I've done and touched some crazy code. And in none of those cases was I ever getting it right, even 90% of the time. Like, just 10%. Just 10% of my day was succeeding. So keep that in mind. Like, don't hold yourself to this impossible standard where you have to get it right. The other kind of analogy that I like to use is there is a reason why musicians make great developers. And the reason is very simple. It's because if they stick with the musical instrument, it's the same behavior mechanic, right? Wrong note, wrong note, wrong note, wrong note, right note. Wrong note, wrong note, wrong note, right note. Wrong code, wrong code, wrong code, right code, right? It's the same kind of like idea where you fail a lot until you succeed. And so like musicians kind of like naturally have this idea of iteration failure, and they're able to kind of move through that. So back to Fernando's question and kind of getting into Brandon's resume here. List projects. Tell me what you are working on. Tell me that you like programming, because when you like it, you stick with it. You stick with it with all the good parts and all the bad parts. And just once again, I just want to hit this drum beat so hard, is that it is not about getting it right all the time.
Should you list your personal projects over what you did in school?
Yeah, I mean, I think that
Matters?
I think if you take on personal projects outside of your school, like if you like graduate and you want to continue to do development, you can list that above. You can list that more higher up in the timeline, especially if it's like current and relevant. And then obviously the school projects can go into school. And honestly, like to be clear, I want to be really clear about something. Like I think the other thing too that I often see is that people overscope those personal projects. They make them huge. They make them massive. And I still do this. Like I said, I'm doing this for a long time, and I make these projects big. Think about what you can build in a week or two, and then move on. The other thing too, and I was just ranting about this on LinkedIn, is that when you get into the interview, for the love of everything, do not tell me everything that you didn't get to, right? Because I feel like it's the other thing too, is we're so overprotective of our projects and our code that we get in and we apologize to the interviewer for what we didn't get done in the project. And I was like, yo, I didn't even know that you like didn't get stuff done until you told me to. You don't need to apologize. And now I can't think about anything else, right? Now I can't, you've told me what was wrong with your code, and now I'm so fixated on it that I can't move past it myself, but you told me to think about it. So it's like, it's your fault, right? No, at the end of the day, like, look, like set expectations. I think that's super important. And I think that's, I was taking a peek at Brandon's GitHub earlier. So we're gonna go ahead and take a peek over there now, because he does something super good in this. And I wanna make sure that we get to that. Going over to Brandon's GitHub. Yeah, okay, so here's that pin repository, super good to see. Weekend React Gallery. Not a super descriptive name, so I'd rename it, but it totally works right now. All right, boom, README. A couple things that I like in here, and actually, I think there's when I worked at Prime way back, I said this is how I want READMEs to look, and it's nice to see it still alive today. The duration. How long did you spend on this project? And you know, that can kind of get muddied, right? Because like you might put a project down for a couple of weeks and pick it back up. Like, tell me the total time. Like, hey, I did 2 sprints that lasted 2 weeks long. I don't care that it took 3 months to do it. Like, it's a 4-week project, right? You know, if you did 2-week sprints. So I love duration. I love context, right? Sometimes that's what makes the thing so damn impressive, is like, look how much I got done in 2 days. Explanation. Here's what I built. This line right here might be the single most important line in the entire README file. You can view the project on Heroku right here. I'm assuming this is a cold link, so I'm gonna let this boot up because it's Heroku. Heroku's got the whole, it'll take a minute to boot up the server. If I can see this working, I will skip past the rest of this and I will just go look at it. And even if you explain it to me, even better. But deployed projects live on the internet are worth their weight in gold in the job seeking process. It is something that I can touch as an engineering leader. It is something that the recruiter can touch, that, you know, they're not programmers, but they can go and play with it. Now, the other trick to understand is that what makes this better, and we're still waiting for Heroku to boot up here, is that if I can look and get into the app and you have instructions on how to use the app, like, that includes everybody, right? That includes my mom if she wanted to go like play with your app, right? Includes Rachel. So Brandon doesn't really do it here, but if Brandon had some sort of description paragraph tag that said, hey, here's how you use this app, this is the purpose of it, that would elevate this app even better. Like, hey, here's how you use this app. But like, this is beautiful, like, right? This is something simple. It's explained in the GitHub README, and it's like, it's boom, it's right there. I can use it. He explains the prerequisites and installation. So if I were to take this code, the spirit of GitHub, by the way, is like code sharing. So I think this prerequisites and installation really honors that. Here's how I get this project down off the internet and use it. Built with, love it. Acknowledgements, great. So this is a really well documented, or just kind of a good README for a personal project. And I love that it's pinned and it's the first one. So they can, guess what? I'm gonna go to the second one. I'm gonna be like, hey, oh, not deployed. So I could see cool pictures. I definitely want to see it deployed. That would really help out as well too. So deploy as much as you possibly can. And on the Heroku note too, by the way, like obviously it took a hot minute for it to load. Yeah, cool. Hey, you can see the project here. I'd even add a note that, by the way, it might take a minute to load. It's being hosted on a free remote, a free server. You okay over there? Oh yeah. Rachel's agreeing with me. Just a note about, yeah, Heroku can load slow. AWS Elastic Beanstalk doesn't have a free tier, so like they would have instant. But for your big projects, if you're job seeking, to get them to instant load, you can pay $7 for what they call a dyno. In fact, Aftercamp is on hosted on Heroku. It's got some AWS components to it, but I have a dyno that's allocated to it, so it just instant loads right away. That way, it just fires up right away. So if you're job seeking and you can afford $7, like put your best app on a dyno. But yeah, this is awesome. This is stellar. Nice work, Brandon. That is a happy GitHub for sure. Resume wise, I've been puffing you up. I'm gonna go ahead and just you have a lot of past life on here. I would definitely whack this down to maybe 2 bullet points, and kind of keep all these extracurricular jobs at 2 bullet points. Once again, it's kind of this question is that you have more about the food and service industry than you do actually about development. I'm not going to connect the dots. I'm just not. And so I would kind of limit it. You could probably have one like super solid 1-page resume here. And I'll tell you that like it never scares me as a hiring manager to see 1 page. That does not freak me out at all. I don't assume the worst of you. I don't assume anything bad about you. It's just like one super consolidated, tight 1-page resume. In fact, I will tell you that if I see the things that I'm looking for to hire somebody and it's all on 1 page and I don't see a lot more, it does not matter. It does not matter. 15 years in this industry, I have a 2-page resume. Like I've seen some crazy like 6-page resumes. I don't think length like hurts you, but it definitely does not help you. And I will also tell you that most of the people at hiring manager that I talk to, they just stop reading after page 2. So like, it's not that like no one's going to dedicate the time to read your entire CV. They're just going to look for the things that really, really matter for the role that we're hiring for. I assume that are more than your resume, meaning like I'm assuming that you are a much more complete holistic person than what's on your resume. I get that. Right now, I just need somebody who can write Android, right? Like that's the thing I'm trying to solve. I don't need everything. I just need somebody who can solve Android because that's the, and maybe that's short-sighted, but that is just kind of how the industry works a bit. So I would whack this down a bit. I would just get a really consolidated 1-pager because I feel like a lot of this could probably be whacked. Like I said, GitHub looked really good. LinkedIn, you and I are connected. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull you up by name here. 1 second. And then I promise I'll stick around for some questions. Joey Shakespeare from Clorox is another person you should follow. Okay. Dig the picture. Dig the picture's good. About, hey, playing Magic. That's cool. I like Magic. Yep. Just scanning it. Same deal. Skills and endorsements for the job you're applying for. Rest looks good. This is nice and clean. I think a lot of ways, there's this big question about should LinkedIn match your resume? It can. I don't think, like I said, I'm not looking for anything to disqualify you in LinkedIn. I'm just looking to see if I can find more value. Funny thing about this is I play Magic. So I'd be like, hey, that kid plays Magic. And I say kid like everyone's a kid, but you know, I'd probably bring that up in the interview. It's okay if you don't play Magic. I'm just saying it would be something I'd probably chat with you about. Okay, let's do questions. I see a chat log at 22. Rachel, I'm lost in the chat here. Anything that we need to answer? Okay. Yeah. So Rachel was saying that Michael said, if you didn't get to something, you can talk about it. It's kind of like a next step. And I love that. And actually we do that in interviews. We'll say like, okay, cool. Like, you know, at this point you told me about your project. You did not tell me what you didn't get to. I might ask you, I'd be like, hey, like, what would you do to expand this project? And actually what I probably would even do if it's on GitHub is I'd actually pull it up and be like, okay, cool. So that feature you want to add, how would you do that? Like that might be a really good way for me to technically go through a code base that you understand, and you can tell me how you would expand on that. I definitely have done that in quite a few, like 25 to 50% of my interviews. I ask that question of like, what would you do to expand this project? Or like, what's the next step? Once again, nothing to feel bad about. And the analogy that I gave everybody about incomplete projects is this, it's really simple, is that Facebook isn't done. LinkedIn isn't done. Twitter is not done. Instagram is not done. Like none of these apps are done. And the reason we know that is because they're still hiring developers like crazy. Like there is no done app. It is okay for you to have incomplete things. And so don't feel bad. You don't need to apologize. You don't need to like defend your thesis of like why you built the app the way that you did and the time that you did. Like what makes it cool is that you did it in 2 days, or you did it in 2 weeks, or that you incorporated some new API that you've never used before, or that you tried a new technique that you like. That's what makes it cool. Not like what the app does at the end, like what value it provides could be really badass. But I'll tell you that like I've seen people program relatively super simple things. Like I got really excited about a candidate who coded a Connect 4 game. Like it's Connect 4. It's not like it's like nothing revolutionary, but it's like, yeah, I just like wanted to program Connect 4 and it seemed hard. So I tried it, and you know, I didn't get it perfect, but like I did this in 2 days and I was like, that's amazing. Like that's super cool. I don't know that I can program Connect 4 right in 2 days. But it's something to talk about, right? Like things don't have merit in their doneness. The value that is derived, my dog is going to bark. The value that it derives is what you tried and what you're experimenting with. Okay, hey, we're 2 minutes over the top of the hour. Thank you all so much for coming. If you have questions, feel free to hit up Rachel or I in Slack or on LinkedIn. More than happy. Fernando, I owe you I will record one for you and send it to you. It probably won't be tonight. Maybe tomorrow night I can get to it. I've been backlogged, but I will get a recording. If you guys need help, just hit us
For
up.
my resume, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I know you sent me. Yeah, that'd be it. Yeah.
Maybe was it that horrible that, you know, he doesn't want to get my, you know, feelings hurt?
No, you're good, man. I'll be honest with you. I like helping. Like I said, at the end of the day, Rachel and I are just here to help. We just love getting people to where they want to be.
What about?
Yeah, good.
What about soft skills? Like, do you care at all if we put some soft skills there, or is something that we should not worry about?
I wouldn't worry about soft skills on a resume. Honestly, a 10-minute conversation with the recruiter will tell us everything we need to know about baseline soft skills. And then we're going to suss it out in the conversation in the interview. So I don't think that like people are like, soft skills are super subjective as well too. So it's not like, you know, somebody says like, good listener. I'm like, okay, well, it's cool. You know, like I know a lot of good listeners that didn't list it on their resume. So like, I don't think that soft skills are a value add on the resume, and they just take up real estate. At the end of the day, the reason you're probably not getting a call, you know, if you're like not getting a call for the job you want, is probably because you haven't told the story. You haven't drawn the metaphorical bear in the resume about how you can do the tech portion of the job. That'd be one reason you didn't get a call back. The other reason you didn't get a call back is there might be those unknown bullet points as well too. So something that's not in the job posting. And this is why I say, like, don't take it personal, like don't. But there definitely are techniques that you can do to tighten up your resume so you get more calls back. And that's, you know, what this series is all about. So once again, we did the session tonight. We had a session from a month back. You can go check that out on YouTube. And then, like I said, if you guys want individual help, hit up Rachel online. We will chat with you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thank you. I see lots of thank yous. We'll go ahead and call it a night, and we will see you in a couple weeks for the AWS session. Thanks, everybody.